Greetings, my fellow freedom lovers, asylum thinkers. This is LL3's newest podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful Beehive State, which is also known as Utah. And today's date, Monday, August 8th, 2016. Looks like I hit that sampler, faded too quickly, but that's just how it goes. Just little practice and so forth. But some, I would say, things I've been checking out in the videos and so forth, like what happened going on in Brazil during the whole Olympic ceremony with the people running the torch, the protesters trying to grab it to get it extinguished because they felt they're being desecrated by their own government, which you can't really blame them because it's been civil unrest in that country for a good period of time, good long time to be exact. And let me just bring this down a notch. Okay, right there. Okay, good. I don't want anything to peak, you know what I'm saying? So that's happening over there. And of course the whole Messiah debacle with Clinton and Trump. It's just same old song and dance. And I know yesterday I talked about the whole Zika virus, which they're using NALD as a spray. Really healthy, right? Come on, give me a break. And it's funny, I was like reading something in the newspaper, local newspaper here, and the gun found in by the swimming pool in Roy, but no charges were filed. But as like front headline news, it's local. Go figure that out. So without all the ranting and so forth, I was going to hit it off with the first article. Let's talk about Hillary Clinton's health. It's from RT, and there's a photo of Clinton having trouble with stare fuels rumors of bad health. And many of you notice I have addressed this for the past year or so to be very sincere on her blackouts and so forth. And let's read here. Hillary Clinton's health could be taking a nosedive. People are speculating after a February photo re-emerged showing the presidential candidate escorted by staffers up a flight of stairs on the campaign trail in South Carolina. The worrying photographs circulated by major agencies show Clinton, 68, being led up the stairs of what looks like a private home. Breitbart and other media have ventured a guess that Clinton's well-documented brain injuries could be causing even mundane daily tasks to seem difficult at times. The photos re-emerged on social media on Sunday, but were taken during the South Carolina leg of the campaign in February. In January, Breitbart reported that Clinton was facing serious health issues stemming from a prior brain injury, citing law enforcement sources with inside connections to the campaign. Media outlets were awash with speculation when the former Secretary of State took an unusually long bathroom break. CNN's Brian Stelter, however, is denying the reappearing photo has anything to do with Clinton's health. She's saying she just slipped. Okay, that sounds pretty logical. She slipped. Okay, well, slip and fall? Good grief. Although she's enjoying a lead over Republican candidate Donald Trump, panic over his attitudes and opinions is being offset by some Clinton episodes, particularly when she's caught lying while her staff scrambles to contain the damage. Recently, during a very sensitive Q&A session, she was quoted as saying that the FBI Director James Comey branded her account on the email scandal involving her use of a private server as truthful, something that Comey never did. Instead, he called her conduct extremely careless. Clinton later tried to explain that she may have short-circuited on her answer during a TV interview. The former First Lady is known going for more than 200 days without holding a formal press conference. The latest Reuters Getty photos of Hillary's near tumble are now fully filling the trend hashtag Hillary's health on Twitter, which was provoked commenting from ranges from lighthearted to utterly inappropriate. And of course, it's like I said, as a person like myself, I was never a Hillary Clinton supporter. Even if she was First Lady, I always eyed her as a tyrannical individual, or I call her a Jezebelian harlot to the New World Order. And I have noticed even some of the past, reports on her health, her blackouts, and so forth. And it's very concerning. I don't really wish that on my worst enemies and their families also. And this, of course, what I'm going to be doing here is going to be on the Daily Sheeple. It's all over Drudge, and of course, what has this here, like the stuff on here, on Drudge Report. Hillary conquers the stairs. Hillary fall in 2012. Hillary falls at home. Blood clot. 2011 falls on boarding plane. In 2009 falls on going to the White House. Broken elbow. So Corona's been stumbling a lot, and it's really disturbing when you look at this. Think about this. They're trying to get another person who is in crappy health, very deteriorated health, be used as a puppet. It happened with Ronald Reagan with his Alzheimer's in the 80s. There was reports and stories that he had to get cue cards about who this person is and so forth, and who was actually running it, allegedly. And I'm pretty convinced, too, with George Herbert Walker Bush was running the show. So that's why even people who are Reagan critics agree with me that he was a patsy, because during that time, Reagan really never wanted George Herbert Walker Bush to be the vice presidential running mate, and questioning Trilateral Commission, Council on Foreign Relations, etc. And John Hinckley Jr. shot him, during the first 100 days, changed his tune. This is what I say about Hillary. Who's going to be calling the shots? According to Stu Webb, there's a thing called the Council of 13. It's just a claim. You can look up Stu Webb, StuWebb.com. He can tell you all about it. But based on this information, even with her seizures and so forth, it's very scary, my friends. And that's why yesterday in my last episode, you can indict her and put charges on her. However, is she capable to be in court, competent? And of course, the Hillary supporters and the campaign are trying to cover this up, but she is stripped naked. That's another example. And that's why you have to really look at this really deep on who you're supporting. And it's funny here in the Daily Sheeple about her health, Hillary's health declines. There's multiple videos, but we'll just read here. Like, there's one video on top of all potential health problems, including socially awkward moments that have, some said, are actually seizures, and others said are proof of demon possession. There's multiple angles on there. There's a link on here. And of course, to that weird spot in her tongue, people have speculated could be everything from syphilis, chancre to oral cancer. There's Rob Bernie talked about that on Twitter, and there's like a hole. You can see that, and of course her coughing fits. There's a video on that, and the photo, of course. Now she can't even climb the stairs without multiple staffers helping her. And there's one video here. Aside from her being shoved down the throats of the country as she cheats and steals and claws her way into the Oval Office, is something really, really wrong with her. We all know she's psychotic, but on top of that, she's physically unfit to be actually president. Of course, they have the video on there with her bizarre behavior, which has been pretty viral on Facebook and Twitter and all your other social media groups. It's, like I said, folks, you better really pay attention, plain and simple. Videos out there. Don't follow the hype and hoopla. You gotta follow your hearts in this matter. And I'll be sincere, I'm not gonna be supporting Hillary Clinton for president, period. Alright? I'll drew my line of sand on that area. And I am critical even with Trump, a lot of areas too. The running mate was a question which I addressed a while back, and Now he's supporting like CFR candidates, neocons like Ryan, and of course McCain. And I'm still scratching my head on that. It's just, what are you doing? It's why, folks, you gotta be vigilant. We want servants, not messiahs. And I repeat this multiple times on my shows. Plant a seed, not a no tree. Don't rely on Washington on everything. I do support the corporate tax go down to 15%. I know Ron Paul to get the business back. I do support that. All right, but there's a lot of other areas we have to see in a bigger picture, and the states need to compete too. So, but it's a real shame what's going on with their ailment, her illness, and that's going to be enough of that because, like I said, she is not, in my view, and in good faith, based on the information, can't be president of the United States. Just that alone is relevant or applicable. Enough said of that. And this one came out August 4th, 2006 from courthousenews.com, which bunch of it's like a grassroots website. It says here, Blue Lives Matter bill pushed by New York lawmaker. It says here, on the fourth day of anti-policing protests at New York City City Hall, a Staten Island legislator proposed a Blue Lives Matter bill that will turn attacks on police officers into hate crimes in New York. Recently passed in Louisiana and proposed in several other states, Blue Lives Matter legislation describes police and firefighters as protected classes, right along with race, religion, gender, and sexuality for the purpose of hate crime prosecution. In New York and most other states, harsher penalties already exist for crimes against police officers than those against civilians. I hate when they use civilians. It's pretty insulting, I would say. This has made some critics suspect that the bills are less about protecting police officers than provoking Black Lives Matter protesters by siding with men and women in blue in New York. The racial overtones of the bill have been heightened by the legislature behind it. Assemblyman Ron Castorina, a Republican from Staten Island, made headlines in June for his racially charged comments comparing abortion to African American genocide. Castorina insisted in a statement that his goal with the legislation is to protect police. Protecting the men and women that risk their lives protecting the public every single day and paramount concerning me as an elected official, the Assemblyman said in a statement. The Blue Lives Matter bill will provide police officers with greater protection against assaults because of heightened penalties associated with this legislation. The Anti-Defamation League, on the other hand, has called such laws unnecessary and counterproductive, as hate crimes are more difficult to prosecute because they require prosecutors to prove intent. Not a big ADO supporter, but yeah, I have to agree with him on that. Evan Bernstein, the League's regional director for New York, emphasized that the organization supports efforts to protect police officers, having said that we believe adding law enforcement to existing hate crime laws would actually make it harder to prosecute someone who kills or assaults an officer, he said. We believe this proposed legislation is harmful to law enforcement and will make it more difficult to prosecute those who seek harm officers. Meanwhile, just outside New York City's Set Hall, protesters have taken over a stretch of park and renamed it Abolition Square, calling to disband the police and eliminate prisons. Activists there predictably want the institution of policing to matter far less in society. Chino May, a 34-year-old graduate student of anthropology, calls it ridiculous and kind of nefarious to liken police to racial group. I mean, it's a job, he said. Next, there'll be a hate crime for gardeners or something, or plumbers. Asked what he felt about the protest underlying theme of police abolition. May he call it more visionary, call for a radically restructured society that's a statement of purpose. Asked what he felt about the protests underlying, obviously to get rid of the police. There couldn't be such a dramatic gap between the rich and poor, he said. To get rid of police, you have to have housing for everybody because you need police to evict somebody. So it includes implicity, all that kind of stuff. But I think if it all leads as a dramatic downgrading of police presence in daily life in the United States, and that's good. Activists have set up Occupy Wall Street style encampment indefinitely. Nabi Hazim, a 27-year-old programmer from Crown Heights, helped organize a demonstration with millions march. He said that the police have already have special protections for their own crimes. The NYPD have killed about 200 people in the last 15 years. Not a single one of them has spent a single day in jail, he said. A New York Daily News investigation shows his estimate is close. Of the 179 fatalities involving on-duty police officers in the past 15 years, only 3 crimes led to indictments. Only 1 officer has been convicted for negligent homicide of a West African immigrant, Alzame Zongo, 19, Alzman Zongo, in 2005, as Habla reported on December 8, 2014. Little has changed since then, with only one new conviction against the police for killing a civilian against NYPD rookie Peter Yank, who shot an unarmed Aki Gurley to death in a public housing stairwell in Brooklyn. Even in this case, Liang never faced prison time and insisted the shooting was a tragic accident. The district attorney for Kings County agreed and recommended leniency, and judge downgraded Liang's top offense and gave him a probation sentence. Police killings in Dallas, Baton Rouge, and New York have made some police feel under attack. A Sergeant Joe Imperatrice, who calls himself the founder of Blue Lives Matter, invoked the killings of NYPD Detective Rafael Campos and Rajan Liu in his statement. Today, our law officials are standing up and making a change, not only for our police officers, but also our communities and their citizens, he said. In Baton Rouge and Dallas, the perpetrators of the police shootings were killed on the scene, and a man who shot the NYPD detectives committed suicide shortly after his attack. Hassan said, on the other hand, that police killings of civilians are far outnumbered these cases and mostly go unprosecuted. There was true even in the case of NYPD police officer Daniel Pantaleo, who was taped placing Eric Gardner in a fatal chokehold. He noted the incident happened in the shadow of a Staten Island ferry and ignited what is known as the movement for Black Lives. Oh yeah. So this is something you have to be very leery of. And like I said, the police have an oath to protect and serve the public at the best of their ability. However, they do have a sovereign immunity and tort liability law in the state, and a lot of states have it as well. Because they're public employees, they cannot be held liable. But each state conditions are different. Look what happened. Look what's going on even with the training. I know I'm repeating myself. You hear my past shows. They're being trained more aggressively, and of course there's even things about trying to be more centralizing the police in general. And I know New York City is one of them. And in my past episode about the nationalizing the police, you can look it up. I may put that archive up about nationalizing the police, which is very dangerous too. But things are really disturbing and even in New York, there's no such thing as a right for self-defense out of the city itself. But I do find this bill or referendum not really great to an extent. The language in there is put them in as a hate crime. But if someone breaks in, they break in your home and so forth, and you shoot these guys, to defend yourselves and family, you're gonna call it a hate crime? If you got corrupt individuals in that entity? I don't think so. That's what it comes down to. It's a big domino effect. Give them more power. Make New York City or the state of New York City or state in New York City a bigger police state for what it is now. and it violates natural law, natural born rights under the New York State Constitution, Article 1, Section 1, if I'm correct. You can folks can look it up. I posted it there so many times. I'll be here all day. I'll be blasting. I'll be babbling this all day. But how truth of the matter is, the police are governmental delegates, and I consider them to be rank and file. What's really been happening? They want the people, we call it civilians. I still call it the people, and the police officers clash with one another, and we can be ruled. They can be ruled over them. That's what comes down to divide and conquer. I support peace officers, okay, not deputies of Nottingham or revenue collectors. The victimless crime laws in New York is a sham. So many of it out there is totally ludicrous. It's just an example. And people need to look at again the Stonewall uprising. That's part of rebellion. And I always say before, Battle of Athens, Tennessee. Principles. Because there's folks out there in the city hall, the so-called assemblymen, these clowns. They put these laws up and have the cops do the dirty work. They need to get their hands dirty, see how tough they really are. Because I'm just tired of all these people get treated like bellboys and bellgirls or peasants or slaves, part of the whole technocratic or tyrannical plantation. So that's how I look at these areas, and I am not too fond of this. If you have to have a rebellion, do it through multiple channels. No more complaining, gotta take action. Sometimes you might have to patrol your streets, and you let the people out there know, hey, the police aren't obligated to protect us. Why should they have the authority on harassing us as individuals? Look what happened with Joseph Lozito, who got almost got stabbed to death in the subway trains in New York City, and according to his own words, the police were in their little cubicle where he was getting stabbed to death. And remember, the police doesn't have any special protection no special protection clause on individuals. So you better look at these things and look it up yourselves. I'm not going to post these on my speaker page. You folks can take the initiative. It is a fact. All right, enough said that. This one got me thinking here. It's from Reuters.com, and it talks about new U.S. mortgage rules aim to stop wrongful foreclosures. It says here the U.S. agency charged with protecting consumer finances approved on Thursday that will help prevent wrongful home foreclosures as a regulator continues to press on reforming the country's massive lending market. The rules by the Consumer Financial Protections Bureau, created in the aftermath of the U.S. housing bust that began in 2006, built on current regulations requiring a mortgage servicer to grant certain foreclosure protections to a struggling borrower once over of the life of the loan. Now, servicers, the conduits for mortgage payments, must provide those protections more than once, offering them to borrowers who make current payments after they have worked out an agreement to avoid foreclosure. This change will particularly helpful for borrowers who obtain a permanent loan modification and later suffer an unrelated hardship, such as the loss of jobs or the death of a family member that could otherwise cause them to face foreclosure, the CFPB said in an outline of new rules. The rules also expanded consumer protections to surviving family members and require servicers to give borrowers in bankruptcy information and possible interventions. They bolster requirements related to loss mitigation, a foreclosure alternative that allows people to stay in their homes and pay some money to lenders as well. Servicers will have to promptly notify borrowers when loss mitigation applications are complete and will not be able to dual track where they take legal steps toward foreclosure at the same time they evaluate the applications. The Consumer Bureau is committed to ensuring that homeowners and struggling borrowers are treated fairly by mortgage servicers, and that no one is wrongly foreclosed upon. CFBP Director Richard Cordray said in a statement. In the June report, the CFPB showed more servicers are giving homeowners wrong or outdated information or no information at all. That's totally irrelevant. All right. When mortgage defaults spiked during the 2007 2009 financial crisis, servicers came under intense scrutiny for missing paperwork, incomplete documentation, and robo-signing, where employees signed off on foreclosure without review. And crisis-era treasury program that allows struggling borrowers to reduce their monthly payments and prevent foreclosure will expire in January. On Tuesday, the CFPB said it was looking into crafting new debt relief programs and releasing the principles guiding its work, which emphasize giving consumers easy access to information about loss mitigation and decisions servers make on their loans, and creating payment plans and loan modifications that are affordable. This is by Lisa Ramber. Well, just another step, hopefully, knock on wood, for the consumers themselves. And there's a lot of cases too. Good example that happened in Collier County a few years ago with illegal foreclosure. All right, which Bank of America got stiffed, got screwed themselves, I would say, by trying to use that, trying to make that scam. And it's a real shame because even a lot of people are not owning homes as much like they did according to the Census Bureau. And I have people I know are in a bind, and some of them, like some of these scumbag banks, I call them, it doesn't matter, these big mega banks are just trying to harass them, push it, to have them sell the property. Happened to people, some of my family members too. Chase Manhattan's one of them. You know what? I say if you have business with those clowns, good example, take your money somewhere else instead of all these scumbag mega banks. All right, that's how I feel about these bastards. It's just nothing but garbage, as far as I'm concerned. And any of you people who work for those banks, I have no sympathy for you. All right, and so it's not capitalism or anything like that. It's called central banking. They want to control everybody. So don't let these anti-capitalist caucus clowns, beatnik wannabes, tell you that any different, because we're not in a true free market capitalist market. It's more like neo-mercantilism and all that good stuff. And that's how I have to look at it. But hopefully these rules will change. And now it was interesting, too, because a lot of these attorneys now are doing foreclosure cases because there's so many loopholes and gaps. They say that's practicing a lawyer in that particular department is a lot easier because they see all these poor contractual language and stuff. They try to tell you one thing is not even on its face. We call it prima facie. It means on its face in Latin. All right, well, I'm going to keep on going here. I know I may be talking too much, so forgive me. This is from thenaturalblaze.com. I think it came out a couple days ago. This is by Amanda Floric. It says here, 3 teaspoons of water in real is enough to make anyone seriously sick. And he said, this is a photo of all the great sexy debris that's in the water. It says here, new study found that viral levels in Rio's water are 1.7 million times what Europe or the U.S. considered worrying. With the Olympic Games just around the corner in Rio de Janeiro, I think it's happened already, in Brazil, doctors are warning athletes to keep their mouths closed while in the water. The reason? Well, a 16-month-long study determined the viral levels in the city's water to be 1.7 million times what Europe or U.S. considered to be worrying. The mind-boggling reality is a result of raw sewage being pumped into the water. In fact, it's estimated that ingesting just 3 teaspoons of the water is enough to be anyone seriously ill. And of course, there's links on here. You can check it out yourselves. The news is especially concerning for athletes that participate in water sports such as rowing and sailing. Distractify relays that Rodrigo de Freitas Lagoon and Paula Morena are among the most contaminated places in the area. At the lagoon where Rome will take place, scientists found 1.73 billion endoviruses per liter, compared to that location like California, a U.S. state that has some of the most polluted water, which has viral readings in the thousands. Affecting of the swallowing the toxic water may result in stomach and respiratory illnesses. In addition, heart and inflammation are also concerning possibilities. The most aspect of this news is the fact that antibiotics would be useless against these viruses. Hooray! According to Dr. Valerie Harwood, the Department of Integrative Biology at the University of South Florida, 16 months of vigorous testing found that 9% of all locations had high levels of viruses. The physician states that's a very, very, very high percentage, seeing that a level of human pathogenic virus is pretty much unheard of in surface waters in the U.S. Would never ever see these levels because we treat our water wastewater. We would you just would not see this. Remember, the Zika virus exposed. A lot of waters were contaminated in Brazil and people got the virus, all right? Olympic athletes aren't the only ones in danger, obviously. Many of the beaches, according to Dr. Harwood, are also contaminated. Her advice to that millions of tourists who will flock to the city: avoid putting your head underwater. Swimmers who ingest the water get violently ill. Sadly, even the sand isn't believed to be safe. Harwood advises parents to keep their kids from playing in the sand because samples of sand from beaches at Copacabana and Ipanema revealed viruses which could pose health risks to babies and toddlers. Both of them have pretty high levels of infectious endovirus. You know how quickly an infant can get dehydrated and have to go to the hospital. That's the scariest point to me, said Dr. Harwood. Olympic officials insist that the water is safe. But this latest finding by Associated Press indicates otherwise. There's a link for that. Hopefully this news serves as a wake-up call for the rest of the planet to adopt more sustainable habits before others' waterways become toxic and polluted. You can share your thoughts. It was originally from Creative Commons, licensed by truthactivist.com. What can you expect? Remember, there's been people been protesting in that country for a good long time, especially during the World Cup and Olympic events. This is really insane. But you know what? It's good for quote unquote tourism, and maybe for the hospitals also. It just really blows my mind. And you know what? The next Summer Olympics going to be held at Tokyo, Japan. Hey, remember Fukushima? Highly contaminated with high radiation count? Yeah, my friends. Yeah, really think about going all those places and be enlightened before heading out there. But I'll tell you one thing. If you're down in Brazil, you better have some natural medicines ready to go, my friends. I can tell you one thing. Antibiotics not going to do anything. It's completely sick, nefarious, and unacceptable. If you're anyone down there, be safe. Whatever you do, don't put your heads in the water, because a lot of garbage is out there, and you have like over a huge population, you're gonna have pollution problems. Hey, when I was in Tokyo, Japan, I smelled raw sewage, just raw sewage everywhere I go, and I turn a corner. Just to give you a good example. All right, so everyone out there, be safe. All right, next one here came from Journal Neo Group, neo.org, which is New Eastern Outlook. It says here it's by John Pereira. It says here Middle East facts about the alleged and actual usage of chemical weapons. The alleged use of chemical weapons in Syria has once again been used by Western media in a propaganda war against Damascus and Moscow. It's no wonder, since we've been witnessing such claims on a regular basis made by all sorts of paid activists based in Washington and London. And the string of groundless accusations against Moscow and Damascus is only getting worse, as we are being told that Russian planes have been using chemical weapons in their strikes against ISIS in Syria. Last such wave of accusations was launched by Reuters and other Western media sources who announced that the representatives of the so-called Syrian Civil Defense claimed that an unknown aircraft dropped dropped containers with poisonous gas near the crash site of the downed Russian Mi-8, which allegedly resulted in 30 men being exposed to poisonous substance. They've been having depleted uranium for a good long time in that region, including Syria and Iraq. Come on, guys. Don't con man these Western journalists here. As it says here, Western journalists would note that the Syrian civil defense militants suspected it was chlorine but could not verify the type of gas used. This information campaign resembles a similar provocation that would be remembered as the Ghouta chemical attack amid the history of the Syrian war. This attack allegedly occurred on the night of August 21st, 2013, when, during an offense of pro-government forces, Western media sources began claiming that Assad soldiers used chemical weapons against radical militants. The purpose of that disinformation campaign was to get Western states directly engaged in the military operations against Syria's President Bashar al-Assad and his troops, just like in 2013, the claim of some poisonous gas at the crash site of the Russian Mi-8 are being distributed by the so-called Syrian opposition, which once again is attempting to use such measures to create preconditions for the U.S. and NATO armed intervention in the Syrian conflict. At the same time, one cannot help but note that Washington has been deliberately ignoring the use of chemical weapons by the so-called moderate opposition, that the U.S. has been vigorously defending the hope topple in the government in Damascus. For example, the U.S. State Department refrained from commenting on the use of chemical weapons by the Nur al-Din al-Zina group, which is considered part of the moderate opposition by Washington. The chemical attack was launched in the Aleppo outskirts, resulting in 7 deaths and 23 being taken to hospitals with their respiratory tracts damaged. So how could one explain such inconsistent policies implemented by the White House? It is clear that it is trying to punish some players for alleged violations of the Convention on the Prohibition of the Development, Production, Stockpiling, and the Use of Chemical Weapons, and on their destruction, while as the same ignoring facts of chemical attacks being launched on a non-state actors in Syria. The answer to this question would be quite clear if one takes a look at the desire of U.S. officials to put whistleblowers Bradley Manning behind bars for life. After all, among the documents Manning handed over to WikiLeaks, one can find facts implicating the Pentagon supplying chemical weapons to various conflict zones, and in Iraq in particular, where they've been put to use. The documents that Manning handed over to WikiLeaks stated that the Pentagon had delivered at least 2,386 pieces of chemical ordnance to Iraq. This fact is mentioned in a 2,000-page long report that was released by this portal that lists over 1 million units of ammunition delivered to U.S. troops in Iraq. Most of these chemical weapons, according to the classification adopted by NATO member states, received the stamp Chemical Weapons and Equipment and were registered by the Chemical and Biological Center at the Edgewood Biological Laboratory in Maryland. The designated code M33A1 states that poisonous gas was shipped in the special cylinders under high pressure, fit for carrying in backpacks. It is noteworthy that weeks before the start of the Iraq campaign, the U.S. government was subjected to the extensive criticism by its principal ally, the United Kingdom. In response, the then U.S. Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld boldly announced that Washington may launch chemical attacks in both Iraq and Afghanistan. But Washington has been dead silent about the actual use of chemical weapons in those states, except for a single case which U.S. government initially denied, but then was forced to acknowledge the facts of the use of the chemical substance called white phosphorus during the brutal assault of Fallujah, although it's strictly prohibited at the Convention on the Use of Chemical Weapons. One must add that NATO forces have also used ammunition with depleted uranium during the bombing campaign in Libya back in 2011, which subjected entire generations of Libyans to radiation poisoning. While the White House works on finding a pretext for a direct military intervention in Syria, perhaps it's time to officially recognize the war crimes related to the use of chemical weapons by Washington itself in a violation of the Convention on the Convention on the Use of Chemical Weapons. Since the arrest and sentencing of Bradley Manning may serve as a confirmation that documents he handed over to WikiLeaks was credible. Therefore, the U.S. is guilty of actual usage of chemical weapons in violation of all international norms. It's what I tell everyone out there. I've been stressing this for a good long time. The United States has to stop being an empire. No ends, ifs, or buts. Until these ass clowns, these pencil pushers, they act so tough. We gotta attack these countries. You do it yourselves to see how tough you really are. I'm just sick of all this disgusting nonsense of innocent people getting attacked. Doesn't matter. That's why when it comes to government, I don't trust them. Because like I said before, it means control of the mind in Latin. That's how I observe, allocate, and all that good stuff. This is just completely condemning. That's how I really feel. And like I always tell people, even my listeners, always observe responsibly. And speaking of wars, I'm going to add this here too about, is this the real reason the United States is suddenly bombing Libya? All right, and who did this? One moment, please. Okay. And it says here, who actually wrote this? One moment, I'm sorry. James Holbrooks. Okay, he wrote this yesterday. It was released yesterday. It says here, last Monday, the Department of Defense held a press conference in which Pentagon Press Secretary Peter Cook disclosed to reporters that the U.S. military, at the request of the officially recognized governing body of Libya, the Government of National Accord, GNA, has begun a campaign of precision on airstrikes on ISIL targets in the northern cities of Sattar. GNA aligns forces that have had success in recapturing territory from ISIL thus far around Sattar. Cook stated at the briefing an additional U.S. strikes will continue to target ISIL in Sattar in order to enable the GNA make a decisive strategic advance. GNA is an interim government created by the UN and installed back in March in an effort to combat the instability, infighting, both political and military, all around chaos that have engulfed Libya in the years following the U.S. intervention in 2011. Yes, all hail to the one world order. That intervention resulted in the death of leader Muammar Gaddafi and forced his family to flee to neighboring regions. One son, however, was captured by rebels in the southern desert of Libya. He was subsequently convicted of war crimes and sentenced to death by a Tripoli court. But none of that is news. Gaddafi's reign is long over, and his son was sentenced over a year ago. And as for the turmoil within Libya, it continues unabated, but with no major shifts to report on, save for one, a weakening ISIL in Libya. 2 weeks ago, Chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff Joe Dunford, one of the two men who recommended Monday's airstrikes against ISIL, stated at a press conference he is encouraged by developments regarding ISIL in Libya. The bastards already planted the seed, right? He went even further, however. I don't think that there's any doubt that the Islamic State in Libya is weaker than it was some months ago. There's no question about it. Additionally, he stated that ISIL's numbers in Sattar, the very city targeted in the recent airstrikes, have been reduced just a few hundred. Given this information, some reporters at Monday's press briefing felt obliged to ask very simple questions. Why now? Could you give us a sense of why now? One journalist asked Press Secretary Cook, further inquiring as to whether there was something critical about Sattar right now that the airstrikes could be a game changer. Cook responded, I think what's changed right now is a specific request we got from the GNA, which doesn't answer the question. Cook will give similarly deflective answers to similarly direct questions regarding timing throughout the briefing. Worse, he refused to divulge details about how those requests were being vetted by the U.S. before agreeing to strike. Legal authorizations for the airstrikes were approved by President Obama, Cook said, and came at the recommendation of Defense Secretary Ash Carter and Chairman Dunford. The birds of the feather flock together. When asked about the legal authority under which strikes are being conducted, are being conducted, Cook cites a 2001 authorization for the use of military force, a resolution passed in the immediate aftermath of 9/11, which gave President Bush broad discretion in how he went after those responsible for the attack. But the AUFM, which allows the president to sidestep the War Powers Resolution and send the military into other countries without congressional consent, has come under heavy fire from adherents to the Constitution. It was the AUMF that greenlit the Iraq War in 2003, for instance, not a declaration of war from Congress as the Constitution requires, which is correct. Congressman Ron Paul and Dennis Kucinich boldly opposed that attack. Since that time, the resolution has repeatedly invoked as justification to launch military campaigns in countries throughout the Middle East and Northern Africa, where the terrorists go. So goes the war on terror, essentially. Hallelujah, right? In fact, that's pretty much how Senator Lindsey Graham summed it up during a 2013 hearing before the Senate Armed Services Committee, where he stated his opinion: the battlefield is anywhere the enemy chooses to make. Chump. As to Monday's targets, Cook said the airstrikes took out a couple of military vehicles and a tank. The revelation prompted one clearly skeptical reporter to put another common sense question to the press secretary. "Forgive me for asking a dumb question," she began, "but why? Sorry about that. Why would taking out a tank and two ISIS vehicles be so critical to the liberation of Sirte that required airstrikes?" Cook responded about precision and the need to avoid civilian casualties, which again fails to address the root question being asked by the reporters: what's happening in Libya right now that's critical enough to require a new campaign of airstrikes? Return of the sun. While there be nothing happening on the ground in Libya that would necessitate of a sudden U.S. airstrikes, except puzzlingly a reduction in the number of ISIL fighters those strikes are meant to take out. Something has occurred recently that might have the U.S. biting its nails. Muammar Gaddafi's son, Saif, the one captured and sentenced to death, was inexplicably released from prison. On July, Saif al-Islam Gaddafi's lawyer told France 24 that the most prominent son of the former Libyan leader has been released in April and was well and safe and in Libya. Saif was considered to be Gaddafi's likely successor and had fully backed his father's stance against the U.S. intervention in 2011. And now that he's free, Saif wants to contribute to the political unification of Libya, one of his attorneys said. And he has the juice to do it. Saif, who earned a PhD in global governance from London School of Economics with a high society player in England, where he lived before returning to Libya to support his father. Can we see blowback coming soon in that nation? Again? In The Guardian wrote in 2011, just after the Hague named him as war crime suspect, that Saif was a magnificent presence for British politicians, bankers, and business people who wanted to deal with oil-rich Libya, but not with the international pariah his father had become. One of his great significance were this magnetic and highly connected Faber's son had been living since his release. Zintan, the town in southern Libya where he was captured and imprisoned, is also where Saif has been making his home. But Zintan is also home to one of the two major militia groups within Libya who have been battling for years to fill the power vacuum in the fragmented nation. Both Zintan and the rival Mistrata refused, like other political and military factions in within Libya, to recognize the UN-installed GNA. Can you blame them? Hell, can you blame them? Absolutely not. Given that the Tanis fiercely oppose the Gaddafi regime, however, many are questioning the motives behind Saif's release and the apparent safe haven given him in Zintan. Professor Yado Ronan, expert on Libya at Israel's Bar Leon University, recently spoke to Jerusalem Post. He recently released his aroused discussion in Libya and abroad. The Zintan armed militia that released him in Vensage his return to the center of Libyan political stage, she said. She further asked if the Zatanis wished to seize his political charisma, experience, and diplomatic talents and connections to gain the upper hand in Libya's chaotic and violent struggle, which has reached, in fact, a tragic stalemate. So, it seems the heir to the leader, the U.S. waged a brutal military campaign to oust may be rejoining the game, and with him apparently wishing to contribute to the political unification of Libya. It's quite possible the U.S. sees these recent events as a political threat to the GNA, the installed government it wants in power. Remember, legal authority used as justification for Monday's legal ineffectual airstrikes is the AUMF, a resolution that especially grants the president the power to send military wherever he wants. So with ISIL influence diminishing in Libya, by Chairman Dunford's own account, it is logical to ask if the strikes were less about fighting terrorism and more about establishing a framework for a prolonged campaign against another albeit potential Gaddafi-led force in Libya. This originally was on the undergroundreporter.org. Well, like I say again, rollback can happen? Absolutely. Why? And this whole GNA thing, the government of national accord, is just another one world order program. All right. When are we gonna stop? People gonna stop leaving these countries alone. The people in Libya have to make a decision on how they want to live. Outsiders can't do that. It's getting plain ludicrous and absolutely condemning. That's how I see it when outsiders come in here trying to tell other countries what to do. Please. But like I said, end it, end it, end it. And all those people still believe Barack Obama is a great president. He's just another war criminal, another bend over Bob to New World Order, and all these other ass clowns with him as well. If you criticize Bush for attacking Iraq and you still support Obama, you're just a complete hypocrite. Okay? I bash all tyrants equally and have no shame of saying it on the air. Alright, enough said that. Well, there's some interesting stuff here. Came from the 10th Amendment Center by Mike Murray. It says here, residents pressure council to yank funding from drug task force harassing medical marijuana businesses. It's in Ferndale, Michigan. Bowing to intense pressure by local residents, a Michigan city has yanked a funding for a narcotics task force known for raiding medical marijuana facilities and harassing patients, demonstrating the power of local activism. In May, we report that law enforcement agencies in Michigan actively work to undermine state law legalizing marijuana for medical use. Oakland County Narcotics Enforcement Team, or just NET Ankrum, is among the state law enforcement organizations that actively pursues patients legally using medical marijuana and conduct raids on legally operating medicinal cannabis dispensaries. Hooray, hooray. They just desperate trying to keep their jobs. Dana Carver has worked as a marijuana activist in the Great Lakes states for years. She said the law itself is great, but many patients authorized to possess medicinal cannabis find themselves prosecuted due to strict interpretations of the statute. Attorney General Bill Showett opposed legalizing medical marijuana and has essentially declared war on the program. Carver said some of these executive branch directives actually run counter to language in the law itself. Yeah, you know why? It's called revenue collecting. So you can say that about Attorney General Bill Shewett. I'm a revenue collector. I'm worried about losing money. Of course. Last month, a number of local activists spoke at Ferndale City Council meeting asking city leaders to reconsider a funding grant to the city's police department. The money came from fees collected from medical marijuana cardholders. The state made money available to counties to offset costs of enforcement of the Medical Marijuana Act. According to Oakland County 1:15 News, the county made the funds available to the 15 municipalities that participate on NET. Ferndale was slated to receive $5,000 to help pay overtime hours for Ferndale Police Department serving on NET. Activists led by former Mayor Craig Covey implored the council to reject funds due to NET's aggressive prosecution of medical marijuana patients and businesses. These funds come from patients, and I want people to understand that, Covey said, reminding the council of a 2010 raid on a clinical relief, a dispensary that opened with city council approval that was then raided. The council voted 3-1 to reject the funds. Councilmember Greg Palika was among the no votes. Our community as a whole has legalized to accept funds that are being used to arrest people for something we consider legal, even if it may be in Clawson or Pontiac. I still have an issue with it. According to Weed Blog, the raid mentioned by Convey was only one of many. Although clinical relief is the most famous of the raids authorized by Boucher, there were others. On the same day, Everybody's Cafe in Waterford and Fort Bears Dispensary in Macomb County were raided by the Oakland County deputies. Other raids followed, including police action in the Lapeer County village of Dryden and in early 2011 of my offices for the Michigan Medical Marijuana Magazine and the Big Daddy's Dispensary in Oak Park, a community neighbor to Ferndale. Other activists also spoke during the council meeting, including area resident Deb Young, which is legalized board member, which is Michigan legalized board member, who led a successful effort to legalize marijuana in Ferndale via petition drive. Steve Sanderson, another raid victim from Gaylord Actions, and Tremaine Golson, which is Michigan Moms. As Weed Blog points out, this type of local grassroots activism can make a huge difference. The people's voice carried weight. Ferndale activists continued the trend of fighting the narcotics raid team where they hurt most, in the pocketbook. Narcotics raid team fights against heroin and methamphetamine in Michigan cities, a necessary endeavor. But raid team leaders are slowly getting the message that jamming up medical marijuana patients and businesses that serve them is losing proposition from a public relations standpoint and from financial perspective too. We can't depend on politicians and government officials who are willing to give up power. It is imperative that everyday people make their voices heard. As the actions in Ferndale demonstrates, you can make a difference, especially at a local level. That's right. You have obligations. If you're a resident of that particular community in the state level, you all have obligations. Take action, petition, jam their phones and their fax machines. Go to these meetings when you can and start calling these people out. The more, the merrier. Doesn't mean you gotta do it every day, but do like sometimes weekly or bi-weekly, get things done. That's why I'm proud of the people that are standing against these raids. Because I say this: no victim, no crime. And of course, I always say before, jury nullification is the right thing to prove this, even if you have to take it to a criminal court on this area. So I say I do agree, nullify the drug war. And the people in Ferndale, thumbs up for you guys for standing up for what's right. And if the police, if that pathetic task force don't like it, too bad. Because you know why? They need us more, we need them. Remember that. That's all I gotta say on that. Finally, I haven't done anything on SeattleOrganicsRestaurants.com for a while, which is pretty cool. It's health benefits of goji berries. And it says here, various research studies have shown that eating berries, including blueberries, blackberries, cranberries, strawberries, and goji berries, can have many health benefits. Goji berries, are also known as wolfberry, have been used for thousands of years for their healing and medical properties. Goji berries are an amazing nutrient-dense superfood and should be part of a regular diet of mothers and growing children. You can add goji beads to your smoothie, muffins, or breads, salads, or cereals on a regular basis. Goji berries have amazing nutritional benefits that can promote overall health and longevity. As a matter of fact, goji berries have 18 different amino acids, including 8 amino acids for complete protein, 21 trace minerals, including calcium, magnesium, zinc, iron, twice iron of spinach, copper, germanium, phosphorus, and selenium. Lots of vitamin A, B vitamins, including vitamin B1, B2, B6, vitamin C and E, and fiber. Powerful antioxidants, including carotenoids, good for eyes, beta-carotene, twice beta-carotene as carrots. Good stuff here. I like that. Polyalpha ascarides, lutein, germanium, and zeaxanthin. As high as goji berries are on antioxidants, there are other foods that have a higher level of antioxidants than goji berries. The video by nutritionfacts.org shows that there are other foods that are even better than goji berries in terms of antioxidants. These foods in the highest levels are antioxidants are dried Indian gooseberries, dried whortleberries, berries common space used in Persian rice made with barberries and saffron, and dried pomegranate seeds. 1. Improving the cardiovascular by increasing circulation, maintaining a healthy blood pressure, and reducing bad cholesterol level. 2. Supporting healthy liver and kidneys and pancreas functions. This is pretty good stuff here. 3. Improving eye vision. The powerful antioxidant known as zeaxanthin in goji berries gets easily absorbed by going directly to eyes and liver. 4. Helping stress and anxiety. 5. Improving sexual function and fertility. 6. Promoting overall health and longevity. 7. Supporting muscle, legs, and bone health. 8. To improve the immune system. 9. Reducing menopause symptoms. Nice. 10. The powerful oxidants in goji berries can fight free radicals, toxins, and heavy metals. 11. Promoting a healthy skin. Goji berries are a great source of phospholipids for promoting beauty and skincare. 12. The phytonutrient in goji berries, known as betaine, can improve cardiac health, memory loss, and fight Alzheimer's disease. 13. Reducing inflammation and improving healthy blood sugar levels. 14. Improving sleeping disorders such as insomnia or sleep apnea. 15. Improving dry cough and nervous system. There's other sources in there as well on these links. And that's why I always say, my friends, Mother Nature is a lot more complex than what we think. And we all got to improve our health and do it for your kids as well. So everyone should go to the store and get goji berries. I think it's awesome. And it's also a wolfberry as well. It's the same name. So definitely, folks, this is really good stuff and keeps your health, fertility, because they're trying to shove these GMO garbage down our throats and make us and trying to create a silent democide on the human race. So, folks, take the initiative on exercising your health, because you own your body, not those bastards from the FDA, World Health Organization, etc. All right? And that is all. I thank everyone for listening to this show. Plus, feel free to download and share this throughout your social media networks. Or if you have any questions, comments, doesn't matter, pro or con, positive, negative, or you got something, information that I may find interesting. Whatever you do, please send your correspondence with decorum. You can hit me on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Tumblr, YouTube, Freedoms Network, and Scene.life. Or you can email me at LokiLuck3, which is LokiLuck, number 3 together, at gmail.com. All right. Well, I decided to do another song today. From a good friend of mine, from Thrash or Die, which I knew some of the members for over 20 some odd years. And it's a cool little song. Go, what do you mean we're out of beer? Very thrashy, traditional thrash, like Bay Area influence, Exodus. If you're familiar with the band Exodus, you can understand. But it's all good, clean fun, and hopefully you enjoy it. All right. Once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Keep on spreading the love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.